Hi there everyone and welcome back to my garden. My name's Diane and I garden here in the northeast of England, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you what I'm going to be using in a tiny little courtyard space to elevate my plants. Okay, so I'll start off by showing you the size of the space that I'm working in currently. The only thing that probably isn't staying is the bird table. Just painted him black and repaired him. He's going out in the main garden. But this little courtyard area here, the pole that you can see up in the middle, that's my rotor stack. So I hang my washing out in this area. We also get the pushchair out from the conservatory there. The pushchair comes through this way and out into the main garden, and it's also the route to the side of my garage there, and also back of the house where I've created a white garden. So it's very high traffic. The paving is block paving. There's no soil in this area, and it is also on a slant. And it's also deep shade for most of the day, from about, I would say, 9:30, 10 in the morning. So as I say, I grow acers, hostas, all the shade loving plants, and I'm going to put a picture up of what this area looks like normally. So there we go. I hope you can agree. It looks really pretty and worthwhile the effort I put into to arrange the plants. Because when we first moved into this house, this was nothing but an area where I hung my washing out, and it was the bin store. So the reason that I'm very interested in elevating my plants is because I think the smaller the space you've got, obviously the less surface area you have, ground surface area to arrange your plants. So you have to go up. I have lots of vases in big tubs there, a big box in a big tub there, beautiful acer over there. All these pots of plants are very heavy. So once they're in position, they usually stay in position all year. And I might sort of bring smaller plants in and out that come into season. But I use anything and everything to elevate plants. So if you can see, just for an example, if I wanted to elevate something at the back between that shrub and that acer, I would need something narrow and tall to go in there. And then because the plants are so big and heavy in these pots, it would stop whatever I put in there from wobbling over. So I'll show you some of the things that I've been using for years. And these are mostly charity shop finds, or they are stands which you wouldn't normally think of as a plant stand. So the very obvious one there is this lovely glass top table. So it's a metal frame and a glass top, and I paid £5 for him. So he would tuck into a corner somewhere. I may use him this year, I may not. I don't normally use tables with such a big surface area, but this year I'm thinking actually I've got a lot of little box topiaries, and they do like growing in shade. So I might be able to sort of display them on a table like that. But normally, as I say, I go for very tall, narrow things. So this, for instance, makes a great plant stand, and it's actually an umbrella stand. I like it because it's black, so it just blends into the background. And that's another important detail in my garden. I'm not interested in seeing the plant stands. There's nothing about them aesthetically that I'm interested in. It's just got to be practical. So with him, for instance, I could quite easily pick him up and say, pop him there over that drain. He's not blocking the drain, but I could put, or let's say let's say I put him in there. Okay. So the purpose of today's video isn't to get these plant stands into their final position. It's just to show you the difference it makes when you can elevate a plant. So let's have a look. What have I got? Oh, what about if I wanted to put a hydrangea up there? So there we go, we've got a splash of green. If that hydrangea wasn't on that stand, you just wouldn't see him. And obviously he's going to fill out this year. Or I could put my lovely big tub of hostas. These, I've got lots of tubs of hostas. I've split them all this year. And he will grow massive. So putting him there would work really well. And the thing about my hostas is that last year, well, every year, I usually have them low growing on the floor and they're beautiful for a couple of weeks and then the slugs get them. So last year I did put one of my big hostas up on a small tall table here. This one didn't get touched and the rest of them just got shredded. So I like him. I don't need to do anything to him, to this plant stand, this umbrella stand, because he's black. But for years, I've just used anything and everything. So I use this little blue table. I've got a few of these little blue tables here. And every year I've thought, oh, I must paint him black so he just blends in. And never got round to it. So I'm going to paint all of these black. So even him, nice hosta there with a great big fern in front of it will cover that blue table up. So I'm not interested in the paint finish on the tables. All I want them to do is disappear into this black wall. So you don't look at the stands and you just look at the plants. Another thing I'm going to use this year is I'm thinking of using this, which is an old crate. I think it had some kind of statue in it. I'm going to paint him black. Now he's lovely and tall. Stand him there with a huge hosta on. And that's going to be fantastic. You'll stop looking at him. I could put that Acer in front of there and you wouldn't see that at all. So yes, that's it. I want the crates, the shabby tables, everything to just disappear. And I'm not really bothered if the paint starts peeling off them. I think if they're just all painted black, then even if a little corner peeks out, you're not going to notice it. So another great find of mine was this plant stand, and I found him in a charity shop. So he's metal and I love him because he's got the drip trays there as well. And he's also very narrow, so I can sort of squish him into the narrowest of spaces. So let's have a look, see how we could dress him. So say I wanted to elevate one of my beautiful red acers like that, and then say a nice green hosta on the bottom, and then say a hosta like that. So these hostas will all spill out. I think he would look beautiful. Or if you didn't want to, I think the lifting this Acer would be beautiful. I could actually have him like that, couldn't I? That would be beautiful. Or I could put my hydrangea on the top. But I do like the Acer, that just difference in colour there. Right, so that's another good idea. Oh, I've just stood that acer up there. So if that crate was wedged in with other plants and I had a huge fern there, tell you what, I'll pull that other fern over and I'll show you what I mean. I will be doing a video on and show you how I do dress this area. So it's very organic. I don't sort of plan it in advance. I just try loads of different combinations of plants. Oh, this one's so heavy. And the thing I have to remember is when I'm dressing this area is that my washing, my rhodostat whizzes around like a helicopter blade in this area when it's windy with the washing on. So things have to be kept back up against the walls as much as possible. So imagine the crate painted black. And then that fern there. And this fern will grow up and spill out here, so you won't see any of that black pot there. As I say, I'm not sort of concentrating on the specific arrangement here. I'm just sort of showing you the different things I use as plant stands. And it's really just a case of thinking outside the box. So you might have purpose-made plant stands, but you might also have things in your garage or your hut or your house that aren't necessarily a plant stand, and you've never thought of them as such, but maybe after this you think, actually, I could use that as a plant stand. And another thing that I'm going to use as a plant stand to elevate plants this year is this old chimney of mine. I've had him for years, and eventually last year he just gave up the ghost and rusted through. So he has a little lid, and when you take the lid off, he's got a very handy hole where the smoke came out of. And I thought I was going to put him in my woodland garden, and then I thought I'll see him more here. I just needed a plant with a plant pot that'll fit in there. So I've got this beautiful trailing geranium. So anything like that, or a hosta in a pot that size. So if we come round into my white garden here, so this is another one of those beautiful hostas, variegated. So this was the base of the fire pit, the chimney on the legs. And I thought, right, I'll use that as a plant stand. So he's actually got a little grate there, which works out great because the water will drain off the plant. It won't be standing in water. But also slugs hate rusty metal. So he hasn't been touched yet, and he will fill out. You won't see any of this bit here, you'll just see the little legs. Another thing I used in the white garden was this little garden bench that we bought for the grandchildren when they were little. It's got sort of a train on the back, but that makes a lovely plant stand and just gives that bit of height. So yes, just have a look in your garage, your huts, around your house maybe, things that you don't use anymore, you know, nests of tables that you don't particularly use. And as long as you don't mind them getting soaking wet and ruined outside, then just utilize all of those. That's a lovely old chimney pot. I've got 2 of those. So it's thinking outside the box. It's looking at something and thinking, actually, I could use you. Right, so we'll just have a little look in the garage here for the kind of things you might have lying around. So I will be using this, which is a bathroom tidy. So if you're using things like this, obviously, if that was at a height on a table, I could put something trailing, maybe pansies or whatever. I'll possibly spray it black this year, or I could just stand that in amongst my plants with another hosta on the top of it. The one thing I would say, which is very important, is when you're using tall, narrow things like this with a very small surface area on the bottom and a very large plant on the top, you really do have to wedge them in tight, otherwise that would just topple over. But I use these every year. As these are all my washed out pots drying in the garage. I will tidy them up. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that you might have lying around in your garage. And it doesn't matter whether they're rusty or whatever, you can just, you know, they're not going to be on show. So I'll take this out. So say we wedge it down in that corner there, behind the acer. You see how it just disappears? And then so if that was black, you definitely wouldn't see it. And then you just pop your acer in there. Keeps the slugs off and elevates the plant so you can see him. Or if I wanted to inject a bit of, say, colour into this area to break up the greenery, they're a bit fiddly to get in the first place, but then that's it, they just stay put. So you see the difference that makes. Languishing in my greenhouse at the moment is my tree fern, which is huge. He must be 7 foot tall, but obviously he's lost all of his leaves now. And he stood in that corner last year and he was beautiful, but the problem is that's where my garden hose is fitted to the wall. So I was constantly ducking under the fern to get to the tap and snapped one of his lovely leaves. I've had this table in the garage for years, pretty hideous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray paint the legs black. You can see the top has got some kind of, I don't know what, plastic coating. I'm not going to bother peeling it all off. I'm just going to give it a coat of black paint because he's going to get soaked anyway. And my thinking is to stand, I'll need someone to give me a hand to lift him up because he's huge, but I'll stand my huge tree fern on there and then he will, the canopy will be right up there, and then to hide this I will just stand pots of, these are all ferns in here, all still asleep, but you just have a look at my video. I'll put the picture up again. That's what these ferns look like normally, and you can see they're just starting to unfurl there. All of these have come up since yesterday. That's just an old recycling bin. So this fern is miles ahead of everything else. So yes, if he was standing in front of that table with other plants, you wouldn't see the table at all. You'd just see this tree fern, which would look 4 foot taller than it actually is. This is another recent idea of mine. I'll put the link to the video where I show you how I made it. So I've just screwed all of these pots to the rungs of the ladder, and in the video I think I dress it with hostas at first, then I've shown it in a spring display. I've had it full of geraniums. So I think that's I'm really pleased with the result there. In this tiny space, I've managed to get height and then fill it with plants. And I think it looks really lovely. It's rustic. So I was considering painting him black, but then changed my mind, and I'm glad I've just kept him wood. So now I've brought you out to the front of my garage where I display a lot of plants in containers. So I didn't want them all flat, same level. So I'll just show you some of the things that I use. So this is an old garden lounger. You can see its wheel there. I'll put the link in the description box below on how I adapted that and made it into this plant stand. And I just use this plant stand here to display any plants that are in season. So this is the spring season. I have chrysanthemums on in the autumn. You can do a Christmas display. I've got an autumn Halloween display on there. And it's where I put plants that I buy and to go into the garden. And whereas before I had this plant stand, I just used to pop them at the top of the drive and they'd sort of stay there until I got round to planting them. When they're elevated and on this display, what I find is they're very prominent, and it's like, oh yeah, I must get that in the garden. So it's working out really well. Let's have a look along here. So, oh, I'm not sure what this is. Again, this was another, we have a local recycling centre, and this bit of metal, I don't know whether it's from a very large fire, like a fire grate, but great for not so much elevating the plants, but it lets them drain away. So that's good. Then so then I've got this type of stand, and you just pop your plants on like that. So that's a purpose-made plant stand, and it just again lets the plant drain the excess moisture away. So if you can see that tall conifer there, if he was much lower down, you'd just see the tip of him, whereas from a distance he really gives a bit of structural interest to the display. And he's just standing on one of those shabby little blue tables, but you can't see. And then that, I've taken the plant off at the moment just so you can see. That is just an old garden chair where the back broke, but makes a great plant stand. So you can imagine him with a nice bit of sort of, I don't know, a pop of yellow foliage on there. That would work well. And you just step a little way back and you can't see them. So eventually the sun's come out. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's given you food for thought as to what you can use to display plants. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And happy gardening this weekend. Bye.